Good morning, everyone. My name is Lucia Soria, and I am here representing the South Dade Chamber of Commerce. And with me today, I have one of our new trustee members, Anna Plesent from Linking Events. So let's get right to it, Anna. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you so much for trusting the Chamber to promote your business. So with that being said, in looking at your business profile, I noticed that you started way back in 2003 with Linking Promotions, which was a staffing company. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the start of your business?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Lucia. So definitely want to mention that this started back in 2003. So I was in college. So I was trying to do the college life. And I was also working promotional events. And at the time, the workload was more than I can do myself because there was multiple events. So the clients started asking if I can assist in finding them qualified talent. And being up for the challenge, I said, sure, I can definitely do that. And thankfully, they trusted me to sort of go on that path with them. And I spoke to my family because I tend to run things by mom and dad. No matter how old I get, I always just run things through them.
Good sounding board.
Yeah, it sounds. And so my mom was concerned about, just my age and the fact that I still had, a lot to live in my college life and focusing on my studies, that she felt maybe it'd be too much to start running a business as well and also keep up with all the other things I was committed to. Because I didn't mention this before, but I was also working a little bit with Univision as a reporter and doing voiceovers and stuff like that because I was in the broadcasting field at the time. And so my mom just felt like maybe I was overcommitting and trying to start a business. My dad, on the other hand, just asked me, do you really want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I really think I could do this.
That's not your typical college life. Running, a business and having a job and college, that's a lot more than college life.
Yeah, so I did sacrifice a lot of the college experiences, and I clearly did not participate in like the Cancun trips with my friends and a lot of the things that they enjoyed. But for me, what I was doing was very valuable, and I had a great time doing it. So I started my business, Linking Promotions, which my dad, he's like, okay, we're going to go talk to a lawyer and you're going to get incorporated and you're going to do this right. And I'm like, okay. So
sure.
I went and sort of not really thinking too much about it. I incorporated. I started doing staffing. It was a lot of work and, just interviewing and getting to know people. And really, back then there was no Zoom. There was no, I don't know, like even computer. I had a Nextel phone and I had a Nokia phone. Sure. It was a long time ago.
It was a lot more person-to-person, conversation, pick up the actual phone.
Mm-hmm. So I ran this out of my mom's home. And after a while, I was able to hire someone to help me, and her name's Jenny, which, is a wonderful realtor now. She's thriving. She's amazing. And I was so blessed to have her as my first assistant. And she did wonders. Like once we got on the same page on what we needed to do, she really ran with it. And so that's another thing. Over the years we've been successful, not so much just because of what I put into it, but just the people that have believed in what I'm trying to build and collaborate with me. And then, over time, people move on. Sure. But I always remember that they all contribute to sort of the growth of this. And so I started a staffing agency. It went on for a few years. We were staffing different campaigns and always trying to find like the best candidate. Being a little bit of a micromanager sometimes. I think I was more back then. I think I was a little annoying sometimes because I just really wanted everything to be so amazing that I maybe called people too many times. But
what was your brand that you were trying to build?
Yes, and I think also I always feel so grateful for the opportunity because, I am a small business. Even though many years have gone by and I have wonderful clients, I still consider myself very small. So just more boutique style, I guess you would call it. So
there's a personal touch to that style.
Yes.
Which you're still providing your clients today, I'm sure. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, so that's how staffing happened. And I learned a lot. And even along the way, the clients were always very transparent about what they wanted. And I would ask questions. And, I was also very honest about stuff that I was uncertain about. And, if they felt comfortable with me proceeding in that direction, that's how it went. And slowly I learned more and more things about, how to run a business. But I think at the time I just dived right in.
Well, you were earning their trust, right, by asking all these questions, because typically when people actually take an interest in someone or something, they ask questions to better serve that person or that situation or that event. So it seems to me that by asking questions, you earn their trust, and then they kind of let you go. So it wasn't just a staffing company, because staffing companies will get the call, hey, I need this today, and you send them. That's not the kind of staffing company, seems to me, that you were running. You were really trying to take care of all the needs of the client, basically a one-stop shop back then, which has kind of transcended to this period. So you went from a staffing company to launching linking events in 2011. So tell me a little bit about what propelled you to take another step forward.
Okay, great. Thank you for asking. So I tend to evolve. I try not to force things sometimes. So if an opportunity arises, I go with it. Sometimes it's not the opportunity that I thought about. It's just the one that presents itself. And so I'm always looking for a door or a window to open. And so in this case, I was, like I said, managing events. I was staffing events with the help of some of our team members that were back at the office while I was still in the field managing. And so linking events happened because of one simple action. So people always say you're one step away from changing everything.
Sure.
Well, I can pinpoint what happened that changed and made linking events happen. So, at the time I was just staffing. And so, I was managing, but I was just staffing for other companies. So what happened was that I was at Fashion Week, representing one of my clients that I did staffing and managing for. And we were doing the Bain de Soleil account, and it was like a PR campaign there. And it was wonderful. It was like we had a massage therapist, and it was this whole experience, super luxurious and fancy, and it was so nice. And, I was there always behind the scenes. I don't always make myself known, but every once in a while, there's people that observe. People are always observing.
Always.
And sometimes
Never know who's watching.
Yeah, and sometimes the people that you least expect are the ones that make that change in your life. And so, the Fashion Week was a week. So I would always get there really early because I get a little nervous. So I'm always like, if I say I'm going to be there at a certain time, I tend to be there earlier. And I was even more when I was younger because I lived really far. I didn't live on the beach or anything. So I was always nervous about traffic. So what ended up happening is that I got approached by someone that looked very normal in sweatpants and looked like she had just gone jogging. And her name's Stephanie, and I'll always remember her because what ended up happening was that she just said, I've observed you. You work really hard, and you seem really nice. And she also mentioned, are you sure you're a Miami person? And I'm like, yeah, I live here. So she's like, okay, because, you just seem a little different. I don't know. I took it as a compliment. I said, yeah. And so we exchanged information. And Lord and behold, a week or two later, or maybe a month, time for me is very weird because I'm always running. So I think a month is like a day sometimes. It just goes so fast. And she reached out to me, and she was with Mercedes-Benz. She had just gotten a new position. And whatever she saw that week or somehow left a good impression, or she saw something she might want to explore. So she taught me so much. I didn't know anything about, the brand or anything, but she believed in my work ethic. And so she really mentored me. And so I was able to work with her. And then that's when I decided, okay, now I'm doing event management because that's what she needed. She needed us to help with some activations with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so I was like, oh my gosh, and I knew I could do it because I had been doing it for other companies, but just the fact that a client approached me specifically, I was like, okay, this is not staffing anymore. This is something else. So once again,
the opportunity,
talk to Dad. I want to start another company, So they're like, okay, why do you need another company? Well, because now I'm going to do event management. So I was still doing the staffing. I had a team handling that on linking promotion side. And I decided to venture out and start doing event management. And so that is the the
That was
decision.
that was the point.
Exactly. And so, eventually she moved on to a different role, but thankfully I kept on working with the new marketing managers at the time. As they evolved, you always get nervous, right? Like, oh my gosh, the person that trusted me is leaving. Now what? I remember that moment. I was like, oh, my life is going to change.
No, so basically your behavior, your work ethic, what you had been building to then, someone observed that. You didn't have to sell yourself in terms of conversation and tell them how great you were. You just showed it to them, right? And sometimes
Right.
actions speak so much louder than words. So now that you went from staffing to event management to such an incredible client that came into your
So
life,
wonderful. Yeah.
tell me a little bit about one of your favorite experiences and why was it your favorite?
Okay, so I have a lot of wonderful experiences that I've gone through, and I think every time I get an opportunity to do a new sponsorship, it always creates like a little like thing in my stomach that I'm like, okay, I feel it, and that's always good to be nervous.
Absolutely.
Not to put your guard down when you think you know it all, or I've done this so many times, I got this, or it's always okay to be a little nervous. And I think that whenever I haven't felt that, it worries me because I feel like I'm going to miss something. So I'm like, okay, what am I missing? But
You trust your gut.
yes, oh my God. It's always
Literally.
been my gut. My gut has been like my best friend. It always tells me when I'm going down a good path or a bad path. There's always like a different feeling. But one of the best memories was, and this was actually still with Stephanie. She was still the marketing manager. She took us to Dallas for the Super Bowl. And I don't remember exactly what year that was, but it snowed. That I do remember.
Wow.
And so, we're super excited. We've been planning to go to the Dallas Super Bowl, and it was going to be very special because that one was going to be something where like the GMs and franchise owners that had earned certain things were invited to go have this experience. And there was an array of experiences of VIP events that would lead up to the Super Bowl, right? So it started from them arriving at the hotel and being greeted by our hostess, and then they would check in with the hotel, and then when they would get to their room, there would be all these goodies. We had a list of stuff they liked, like this person likes Sprite, this person likes Heineken, this person likes gummy bears, stuff like that. So it was all waiting for them in their room. But the funny part is the curveball, because there's always a curveball.
Always.
Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, but there's always a curveball. And so the curveball was that right before we all flew out, our team flew out before everyone else, there was a snowstorm. And so we show up at the airport, and Sarah and I are staring at the screen, and it's like 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. We had a really early flight. And it's like canceled. And then ours didn't say canceled, which was like, yay, we're going to get to work. And then, oh my gosh, do I want to get on a flight? What if, like sometimes your brain can go places, and it was like, no, we're getting on a flight. Everything's going to be fine. And so we got on the flight. It was bumpy. I was really excited to land. And then when we get there, in true Mercedes fashion, there was a car waiting, in the parking lot where we would just pick up the keys. And that was wonderful. It just shows like their level of, expertise and experience and just, what they deliver. So they had, their vendors and people that handle the cars have a car waiting for us. And I remember being so nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to drive in snow.
Yeah. Not typical for a Florida girl.
No. So, needless to say, we knew we had to get the job done. So, Sarah was calling places to see which ones were open, and we were able to get a lot of stuff off our checklist. A lot of it we had to leave for the next day as well. We always get in very early, so we had like a buffer of like a full day. So anything we did that day, we were ahead.
Sure.
And then we had the following day to catch up. So we got everything done, and that event was really interesting and challenging because a lot of the things had to be completely replanned. A lot of people we were working with could no longer assist us because they were like trapped, not trapped in a bad way, but like the roads weren't clear and they couldn't meet us, or maybe people were concerned about, getting on the road on those conditions. And one of the most interesting things was that even at the hotel, the lights kept going out. So we were trying to create a wonderful experience because eventually our guests did start arriving like 2-3 days later. They all had different flights. And And the first couple of guests experienced light outages because Dallas was using so much like electrical power with their heating. So the grid would like, and then it would turn on. So you had people getting stuck in elevators and stuff, which was, I would just say, sir, how about we just walk you up the stairs? I recommend it, but if you must use the elevator, it's okay. But, I recommend we can walk you. And so that was that, experience. And a funny thing is, one of our very important guests asked for something that, you might think might be insignificant, but he made a comment about, at front desk, I asked for a FedEx box or FedEx envelope. I don't remember if it was a box or an envelope, but he needed to ship something out. And he was like, they didn't have any. And so I was like, okay, don't worry, we'll handle it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, is FedEx even open?
Yeah, sure.
So thankfully we found a FedEx that was open. We went in the snow. It took us it was 5 minutes away, but it took us 30 minutes to get there. And then when we get there, we're like, oh my God, what size?
No, and that's another curveball because you weren't expecting to go back out in that weather.
Yeah.
So another curveball.
And of course, there's a lot of things going on,
Sure.
right? We're planning the dinners, we're planning greetings, we're planning different activities. So it's like, okay, no worries. And he didn't mention what size. And it's like, grab everything. Sure. We leave it there. And those are little details that I think are really important. Sometimes people mention little things and then it's your choice whether you want to go that extra mile and show that customer service. And I think that I've tried to pick up on those signs along the way. And whenever possible, I try to deliver on that. Sometimes not everything is possible. There is times where I don't know if I could do that, but I will try. So anyways, we left all the options and then there was a very wonderful email sent out about, thank you for doing that and stuff. So that was one of my favorites because I learned a lot.
It was challenging.
Yeah.
It really threw you. I mean, you seem like a planner to me, right? You seem like you want every little detail, set. But then this curveball came in. You had to think on your feet. Yeah. You had to, problem solve. You had issues that were beyond your control, but you made it happen. And you keep referring to the experience, right? So when I go to an event, I've never thought about it that way. What kind of experience am I going to have? So, it seems to me that you're going above and beyond providing, the necessary things to make an event successful. You're looking for that person to really immerse themselves in what it is that you've planned. So talk to me a little bit more about this experiential marketing and experience that you have going on.
Yeah, so I think one of the simplest ways to explain that is that when you experience a smell or you taste something and it gives you this feeling of a memory, and hopefully it's a good memory, but some things are associated with bad memories, and that's the one we don't want, right? I don't want someone to experience something bad with our brand at an event because they will remember that. Mm-hmm. So every time you have a scent or you just have something that really resonates with you and you automatically connect it to whatever brand or whatever event that you're at. So that's why it's so important. I always try to think okay, well, what does this brand stand for? And what experience do we want them to feel, right? So always trying to think of ways, and that's something that everyone should think about with their business in general. When people take a moment to experience your brand, are you taking certain steps for them to remember you? Because it's a crowded space. There's already enough of everything, right? There's a lot of car brands. There's a lot of marketers like myself. There's a lot of event people like myself. So the hope is that at least they'll say, wow, they were so nice. If I can at least have someone say, that was really nice, the team that greeted me. Because they're always going to look at what brand you're wearing, right? So if I'm representing Mercedes-Benz, or if I'm representing, Dunkin' Donuts, or whoever's brand I'm representing that day and my team is representing, that person is not going to say, Anna was so nice. They're going to be like, oh, the Dunkin' Donut team was so nice. They smiled and I was having a bad day and they were so nice. Or maybe they don't even say it, but their brain registers
Sure,
that feeling of
absolutely.
like, oh, that was nice. Like, I didn't expect
So you're really hitting all the senses. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying
Exactly.
to create a memory for that person. And since we all experience things in a different manner, some people are visual,
Yeah.
some people are auditory, some people are sensory, some people love smell, you know.
Yeah.
Back when I was a little girl, 7 or 8, there's a specific brand of gum
Really?
that I used to love to eat, and I could still remember and experience that taste, and I've never recreated. I've never been able to find it. So what you're doing is very admirable because you're really learning your client. You're really learning the brand that you're representing to create that experience for the consumer that's going to participate that day. So that, I think that sets you apart, quite frankly, because you're right in terms of time and hurry, and things pass. And, you know, planning an event is not an overnight situation. So, thinking about all the different ways that you can really bring success to that brand in that experience that may be a 2-hour experience or 3-hour experience. Doesn't take 2 or 3 hours to plan that. Tell me what's a good planning schedule for you for an event of your typical event. What is your time frame and your scheduling that you start working on something?
Okay, so that's a great question, and the answer can vary. So obviously, when you already have a relationship with a client that you already know, you know, because I talked about how I ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
So when I have a new client, I feel like the timing is much longer because I just have to assume I know nothing. Like, even though I have experience and my team has experience and I have a wonderful team, I just try to think we know nothing. We're going in like babies, like what's going on? And that's not to take away from our experience, but that's to just really have a clean slate as to what they want, right? Because it's not like I can make recommendations once I understand what they want, but it's not up to me to tell them how their business should be ran or the budget. You know, I can make recommendations on budget, but, you know, a lot of times the budget also goes hand in hand with the experience. Politeness and sweetness and being like ethical in your actions, it should just be part of it. But then, do you have a budget for uniforms? That makes a difference in the experience, right? Are people going to be dressed a certain way? And that is something visual that your consumers will see. If there's no budget for them, then the experience might be a little different, right? But I can make recommendations, but at the end of the day, the client is the one that dictates how we execute. And we just come in with like a clean slate, and that takes longer.
Sure.
So whenever we get new clients, I feel like the process, you know, ideally should be like an onboarding process of a couple of weeks, especially if it's a big brand with a lot of guidelines. You know, I think there's a lot of studying for us to do as far as like brand guidelines. If they have a brand book, I'm like, let me read your brand book. Because even understanding the colors of the brand and understanding things they like, certain words that they're allowed to say versus words they prefer not to be used, those things are things that you can communicate to the staff, right? So if a client doesn't like the word sale, but they like exceptional offers or those type of things, if you don't know about them, then you'll have a training with your staff with the wrong wording. So onboarding a client that is new, I feel like you need at least a month to like really create a wonderful experience. And it also depends how big the campaign is, right? So if you're planning an NFL activation, you know, a month I would not recommend. But if you are doing a smaller golf event, and there's already certain things, it also helps if the client has a clear vision of what they want. If the client understands, I want blue, I want this is the time, like a lot of the decisions are made, then it's just making it happen, then that works. Now, when you've been working with a client for a long time, I think that the process gets reduced because you already have almost like a well-oiled wheel, like where your team already, you know, knows the talking points. You've already done those type of events before. So whenever you do a customized event, I think that it's underestimated the amount of hours that can go into something because you have the event manager, which I have a wonderful event manager that helps us. And then you also have people in the office that might be designing something. So then communicating with each one of those, the message, right, is really important. So there's different tiers into like what an event can take. Like, are you doing signage? Are you doing promotional items? Are you going to do a website for the event? Do you have a registration list? And then depending on where those lands, you we will have probably different people in our office handling it. And then making sure they all understand the big picture is really important. So I don't know if I answered your question, but every event is really unique. And it's always been a challenge for me to really pinpoint, because if the client needs more time, they need more time.
Right. I think you answered in the fact that it's about getting to know your client. And once you get to know your client, then you can forecast what kind of time frame you and your team are going to need to successfully execute the event. So you mentioned a few things along the way: promotional items, website. So are you telling me that you're a one-stop shop?
So as we've had to evolve and find new windows and new doors to open, clearly in the pandemic time, events became very slim to none. So therefore, sort of going back to some of our resources and the talents that our in-house team had, because obviously a lot of the stuff is not on me. Like, I don't know everything. So I asked the team a lot of questions, and then, we had a designer, and then she was helping me come up with ideas, because we always do like promotional items for our events. So we're like, okay, well, now we can do that too for other people, even if they're not hiring us for the events, right? Because in the past, we just kept it where we did it for our existing clients and didn't really offer it as a service for someone that wasn't hiring us to manage their activations. So slowly, right, like life changes, we evolve, we say, okay, there's a reason for this, let's just figure it out. So we started with staffing, and that's how we started learning about the importance of the people that represent you, and then managing the events along with the staffing. So now we're also talking about like the assets, right? We've talked about the visual representation of your event, and whether you have uniforms that are branded or not, whether you have a branded tent or not, whether you have something to take away, whether it's a pen or a phone charger. But the point is, there's different ways to touch on your consumers and leave that brand that you're trying to push with them. So we did start, offering this to the end user instead of just keeping it for ourselves, for our clients. So we do promotional items, we do design. And thankfully, we have an in-house team that we can do also your website. So we've gone into now digital marketing. So it's really fun. I've learned a lot.
And you'll continue to learn, because I think you're going to keep adding a bunch of services and maybe a few surprises around the corner.
Yes, I've even learned to TikTok a little. It's funny because a few years back, I was not really into putting myself out there on social media, and that pandemic sort of changed things. And so now I'm here on this show with you.
Yeah.
And now I'm creating content, talking to, people. And so it really has changed my outlook, right? So I've just let life sort of guide me. It's like, okay, I guess this is now what I'm going to learn, and I'm going to allow people to teach me, and then maybe I could teach others along the way. And so I don't know what I'll be doing next. But yes, we are a one-stop shop, and if you do not want our management services, it's okay. We still love you. We will still help you be successful at whatever you're trying to accomplish. Once again, I know a lot has to do with resources and budgets. Like being a small business owner myself, I know sometimes I have to make decisions on how I want to invest our resources. And, I can totally relate to that. And I think that's also why I thought, well, maybe people just need help designing their logo. Maybe they just need help like consulting.
Sure.
And that's okay.
So I'm really happy to, to have you here today, because you bring a wealth of opportunities for small businesses in particular to grow their business. And a lot of times it's what you're saying. A lot of times they may not have the knowledge or know the right person to call. But as a chamber member, you are available at a email address, call the chamber and get information for Anna on linking events. And from the chamber's perspective, you were a great asset in helping us plan the very successful golf tournament. I've never seen logistics like what you've put together for us to keep us organized and to make sure that not only everyone had a great day, but just the constant care that you and your team took to make sure that the chamber staff and the chamber volunteers were happy and were, you were right there for help. And as we come to a close, I would be remiss to not mention that coming on June 9th, we have our Ladies of Legacy Luncheon. At Mercedes-Benz of Cutler Bay. Again, they're coming through and offering their beautiful facility for us. And you are working with us on the landing page. So if you guys want to come out to a wonderful luncheon, meet Anna in person, mingle with great speakers, I invite you to come to June 9th, Ladies of Legacy at Mercedes-Benz. And Anna, thank you for your trust in the chamber, becoming a member, and for your work ethic and everything you bring to the table. So from South Dade Chamber of Commerce, I wish everyone has a wonderful day. And again, I thank Miami Community News for your partnership in allowing us to highlight these wonderful small businesses.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucia. And I do want to recognize that I can't do any of this without our wonderful team. So, if you guys would like to meet our team, you visit our website. We have them all there. But thank you for the trust, and we're so excited for this event and for what the future has.
Absolutely. It was great talking with you today.
Thank you, Lucia.